The blizzard had been howling for 3 days when Liam Greyford heard the desperate pounding on the way station door. And he knew, before he opened it, that whoever stood outside had minutes left before the cold claimed them. He threw the bolt and pulled, wind screaming past him into the warmth, snow swirling in eddies across the floorboards. On his threshold stood an orc woman, her green skin gone almost blue at the extremities, ice crusted in her black hair and across the leather of her courier's satchel. Her tusks chattered as she tried to speak, and Liam did not waste time on words. He grabbed her arm and hauled her inside, slamming the door against the storm. She collapsed against the wall, sliding down to sit in a puddle of melting snow. Liam was already moving, grabbing blankets from the chest by the fire, stoking the embers into proper flames. He wrapped the blankets around her shoulders and pushed a mug of something hot into her hands, not caring that it was just broth left over from his own dinner. She drank, shaking so hard the liquid sloshed, and he crouched in front of her to assess the damage. "Fingers," he said, his voice rough from disuse. He lived alone up here, and sometimes days passed without him speaking aloud. "Can you feel your fingers?" She nodded, still unable to form words. Her eyes were amber, he noticed, bright against the exhaustion and cold shock written across her face. Young, maybe early 20s, with the lean build of someone who spent their life on the road. The courier's satchel she clutched even now marked her profession, and Liam felt a twist of sympathy. The mountain pass was treacherous even in good weather. In a blizzard like this, it was a death sentence. "Mule," she finally managed, the word cracking. "Dead a mile back." "Nothing to be done for it now," Liam said, practical as always. "You are here, that is what matters." He left her by the fire and went to prepare the guest room, though calling it that was generous. The way station was small, built to house travelers for a night or two at most. Besides his own quarters, there was only one other bedroom, barely large enough for a bed and a trunk. But it was warm and dry, and after he piled extra blankets on the mattress and lit the small stove in the corner, it felt almost welcoming. When he returned to the main room, she had stopped shaking. The color was returning to her skin, green flooding back like spring across thawing ground. She looked up as he entered, and for the first time he saw her properly. Not beautiful in the conventional sense, perhaps, but striking. Her features were strong, her eyes intelligent, and there was a straightness to her spine even in exhaustion that spoke of pride. "Thank you," she said, and her voice was steadier now. "I thought I was dead." "You nearly were," Liam agreed. He was not one to soften truth with pleasantries. "The storm is not letting up. You will need to stay the night." Something flickered across her face, too quick for him to read. "I have coin," she said. "I can pay for lodging." "I am not asking for payment," Liam said. "This is a way station. Shelter is free to those who need it." She studied him, those amber eyes searching, and Liam found himself suddenly aware of how he must look. Short for a man, barely 5'8", though broad through the shoulders from years of chopping wood and hauling supplies. His hair was brown and perpetually disheveled, his beard trimmed close but never quite tidy. He had been called handsome once or twice in his youth, but mostly he thought of himself as ordinary, unremarkable. "I am Kira Coalmarch," she said finally, as if deciding he was trustworthy. "Liam Greyford." He gestured to the table where bread and cheese still sat from his own interrupted meal. "Are you hungry?" She hesitated, then nodded. Liam cut more bread, sliced the cheese thicker, and set it before her. She ate like someone who had been rationing for too long, and he did not comment on it. Instead, he busied himself with stoking the fire, checking the window shutters, all the small tasks that kept away station running through the brutal mountain winters. "How long have you been on the pass?" he asked, not looking at her. 2 days. Kira said around a mouthful of bread. The storm caught me on the second morning. I thought I could push through. Foolish, Liam said, but there was no heat in it. But brave. Foolish is probably more accurate. She set down the bread, her expression wry. The dispatches I carry are important, but not worth dying for. No dispatch is worth dying for, Liam said. He poured himself tea and sat across from her at the table, the same table where he ate every meal alone, day after day. They will wait. The pass will clear. When? Kira asked, and he heard the worry beneath the question. Liam glanced toward the shuttered window, listening to the wind's howl. Hard to say. Could be a day. Could be a week. Her face fell just slightly, and he felt an unexpected pang. It was strange having another person in his space. Strange, but not unpleasant. The way station had been lonely this winter. Lonelier than usual. Most travelers avoided the pass in the cold months, and there had been stretches of weeks where he saw no one at all. You are welcome to stay as long as necessary, he said, and meant it. Kira looked at him, really looked, and something in her expression softened. You are kind, she said. That is rare, up here in the mountains. Not kind, Liam said. Just practical. I would not send anyone back out into that, but it was kindness, and they both knew it. Orcs were not always welcome in human establishments, even way stations that were supposed to serve all travelers. He had heard stories of orc couriers turned away, forced to camp in the snow, and the thought made him angry in a quiet, simmering way. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling, the storm raging outside. It was a comfortable silence, Liam thought. Easy. He was not much of a talker, and Kira seemed content to simply sit and thaw, her hands wrapped around a mug of hot tea. Eventually she spoke again. Have you always run this station? 5 years, Liam said. Before that I was a soldier, down in the lowlands. What made you leave? He considered the question, turning it over in his mind. Got tired of fighting, he said finally. Wanted somewhere quiet. Kira nodded as if she understood. And is it quiet? Mostly, Liam said. A smile tugged at his mouth, small and unexpected. Except when couriers nearly freeze to death on my doorstep. To his surprise, she laughed. It was a good laugh, warm and genuine, and it filled the small room like sunlight. I will try not to make a habit of it, she said. Appreciated, Liam said, and found himself smiling in return. The night deepened, and eventually Liam showed her to the guest room. She thanked him again, her voice soft, and he retreated to his own quarters, but sleep eluded him. He lay in the dark, listening to the storm, and thought about the orc woman sleeping one room away. Thought about her laugh and her amber eyes, and the way she had looked at him with something like trust. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at him that way. The storm did not break the next day, or the day after that. Kira healed from her frostbite quickly, the resilience of orc constitution showing through, and by the third day she was restless. Liam found her pacing the main room, staring at the shuttered windows as if she could will the blizzard to stop through sheer force of frustration. It will pass, he said, not looking up from the harness he was mending. Fretting will not make it faster. I know, Kira said, but she did not stop pacing. I just hate being trapped. You are not trapped, Liam said mildly. You are sheltered. There is a difference. She stopped, turning to look at him, and after a moment she laughed again. You have an answer for everything, don't you? Not everything, Liam said, but most things. She crossed to the table and sat down across from him, watching as he worked. His hands were steady, sure, threading the leather through the buckle with practiced ease. It was soothing work, the kind that quieted the mind. Where did you learn to do that? Kira asked. Army, Liam said. You learn all kinds of skills when you are responsible for your own gear. I never learned, Kira admitted. I probably should, as much time as I spend on the road. Liam glanced up at her, considering. Then he pushed the harness across the table. Try, he said. She blinked. What? Try, he repeated. I will talk you through it. Kira picked up the leather, turning it over in her hands, and Liam guided her through the steps. She was a quick study, her fingers deft despite her initial uncertainty. They worked in companionable silence, and Liam found himself enjoying the process of teaching, of sharing something he knew. You are patient, Kira said after a while. That is a good quality. Comes with practice, Liam said. Not much to do up here, but be patient. Does it not get lonely? The question was gentle, but it struck something deep in him. Liam paused, considering his answer. Sometimes, he said, honest despite himself, but loneliness is better than the alternative. What alternative? Being surrounded by people and still feeling alone, Liam said. I had enough of that in the army. Kira nodded slowly, and he thought she understood. They worked in silence after that, but it felt different now. Deeper. Like something had shifted between them, some wall lowered just slightly. The days blurred together. The storm continued, relentless, and Kira settled into the rhythm of the way station. She helped with chores, insisting she could not simply sit idle. Liam protested at first, but she was stubborn, and eventually he gave in. They fell into an easy partnership, working side by side to keep the station running. She chopped wood while he cooked. He hauled water while she swept the floors. It was domestic in a way Liam had never experienced, and he found he liked it more than he wanted to admit. In the evenings, they sat by the fire and talked. Kira told him about her life as a courier, the places she had seen, the people she had met. She spoke of the open road with a kind of reverence, and Liam understood. Freedom meant different things to different people. For her, it was movement. For him, it had been stillness. What about you? Kira asked one night. What did you do in the army? Infantry, Liam said. Nothing glamorous. Just marching and fighting and trying not to die. You must have been good at it if you survived. I was competent, Liam said, and lucky. Luck is a skill of its own, Kira said, and he smiled despite himself. Is that courier wisdom? That is Kira wisdom, she said, grinning. Much more valuable. He laughed, a real laugh, and realized it had been years since he had done so. Kira had that effect. He was learning. She drew things out of him he thought he had buried. Humor. Warmth. The parts of himself he had locked away when he came to the mountains. On the 7th night, the storm finally broke. Liam woke to silence, true silence without the howl of wind. He rose and opened the shutters, and the world beyond was blinding white, untouched and pristine. The pass was buried under feet of snow, but the sky was clear, stars bright against the darkness. He found Kira already awake, standing by the window with a mug of tea. She looked out at the snow and said nothing, and Liam stood beside her, equally silent. The moment stretched, fragile and heavy with things unsaid. The pass will be clear in a few days, Liam said finally. Once the snow settles. Yes, Kira said, and her voice was soft. I suppose it will. Neither of them moved. Liam could feel the weight of her presence beside him, warm and solid. He wanted to say something, to ask her to stay longer, but the words stuck in his throat. She had a life, a job, places to be. He had no right to ask. Thank you, Kira said, still looking out at the snow. For everything. You saved my life. You would have found shelter, Liam said, deflecting. Maybe, Kira said, but I am glad it was here. She turned to look at him, and their eyes met. Liam's breath caught. He was not a romantic man, had never been good at reading such things, but there was something in her gaze that made his heart race, something that felt like possibility. Kira, he started, but she shook her head. Don't, she said gently. Not yet, he nodded, understanding even if it hurt. They stood together in the pre-dawn light, and Liam memorized the moment. The way she looked haloed in starlight, the quiet between them, the ache of wanting and not having, 2 days later, the pass was navigable. Liam helped Kira prepare for the journey, packing supplies, checking her gear. She would have to walk without her mule, but she was strong and the way down was easier than the way up. She would make it to the next station by nightfall. They stood at the door. The moment of parting arrived. Liam wanted to say 100 things, but all that came out was, "Safe travels." Kira shouldered her pack and looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then, impulsively, she leaned in and kissed his cheek. It was brief, barely a brush of lips against skin, but it burned like a brand. "Thank you, Liam Greyford," she said. "I will not forget this." And then she was gone, walking away into the snow, and Liam stood in the doorway until she disappeared around the bend. The way station felt cavernous without her, empty in a way it had never been before. He closed the door and returned to his routine, but everything felt wrong. The silence that had once been peaceful now felt oppressive. The solitude that had been a comfort now felt like a prison. He told himself it would pass, that he would adjust, that this was just the price of kindness, the cost of letting someone in even briefly. But the days crawled by and the ache did not fade. 3 weeks later, Liam was splitting wood when he heard the sound of hoofbeats. He looked up, axe still in hand, and his heart lurched. Kira was riding up the pass on a sturdy mountain pony, her courier's satchel once again slung across her shoulders. She pulled to a stop in front of the way station and dismounted, and for a long moment they simply stared at each other. "You came back," Liam said, and his voice was rough. "I have a delivery," Kira said, but there was something in her eyes that belied the casual words. "For the garrison on the other side of the pass." "The pass route," Liam said slowly, understanding dawning. "You took the pass route." "They needed a courier," Kira said. "Someone who knew the terrain, someone who could handle the mountains." "And you volunteered." "I did." Liam set down the axe. "Why?" Kira stepped closer, and he could see the nervousness beneath her confidence. "Because I have been thinking," she said, "about that week, about this place. About you." His heart was pounding now, hope and fear warring in his chest. "Kira, I know it is foolish," she said, rushing now. "We barely know each other, it was just a week, but I cannot stop thinking about it, about you. And I thought maybe if I took this route I could see if it was real. If what I felt was just gratitude or something more." Liam closed the distance between them in 2 strides and took her hands. They were warm, strong, real. "And what do you feel?" he asked. "I don't know yet," Kira said honestly, "but I want to find out." He laughed, the sound startled out of him by sheer relief. "Then stay," he said. "As long as you need, as long as you want." "One night?" Kira asked, a smile tugging at her mouth. "Or longer," Liam said, "if you would like." She squeezed his hands. "I would like that very much." And so she stayed. Not just one night, but many. The pass route brought her through every 2 weeks, and each time she lingered a little longer. They fell into a new rhythm, one built on anticipation and reunion. Liam began to time his work around her arrivals, making sure there was fresh bread, stew simmering, the guest room aired and ready. Kira brought stories from the road, gifts from the towns below, laughter and life into the quiet station. The guest room became her room. The table became their table. The way station became something more than just a shelter. It became a home. Spring came, and with it the thaw. The pass opened fully and traffic increased. Travelers came and went, but Kira was a constant. She arrived every 2 weeks like clockwork, and Liam found himself counting the days between her visits. They talked for hours, learning each other in layers. She told him about her childhood, growing up in a border settlement where orcs and humans lived in uneasy proximity. He told her about the battles he had fought, the friends he had lost, the reasons he had fled to the mountains. "I wanted to disappear," he admitted one night. They were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset paint the peaks in shades of gold and pink. "I thought if I came up here I could just stop existing, stop mattering." "Did it work?" Kira asked. "For a while," Liam said. "Until you showed up half frozen on my doorstep." She bumped her shoulder against his, a gesture grown familiar. "Sorry to ruin your solitude." "I am not," Liam said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. Summer brought long days and short nights. Kira's visits stretched from overnight stays to 2 days, then 3. They worked together to expand the station, building a small stable for her pony and the occasional traveler's mount. Liam taught her to garden, and they planted vegetables in the rocky soil behind the station. Kira taught him the routes and roads of the lowlands, sketching maps and sharing courier tricks. They did not speak of what they were building, this thing between them. It felt too fragile, too precious to name. But it was there in every glance, every touch, every moment of comfortable silence. Liam had never been good with words, had never known how to voice the feelings that churned in his chest. But Kira seemed to understand anyway. She always had. Autumn arrived with a blaze of color, the aspens turning gold against the evergreens. Kira came through on a crisp October afternoon, and Liam knew immediately that something was different. She was quieter than usual, distracted, and when he asked if something was wrong, she shook her head but would not meet his eyes. They ate dinner in silence, and afterward Kira sat by the fire while Liam cleaned up. He could feel the tension radiating from her, thick and heavy, and finally he could stand it no longer. "What happened?" he asked, sitting beside her. Kira was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I was offered a posting." Liam's stomach dropped. "A posting? In the lowlands," Kira said. "A prestigious route, good pay, stable work. The kind of posting most couriers dream of." "That is wonderful," Liam said and tried to mean it. Kira finally looked at him and her eyes were anguished. "Is it?" "It is what you deserve," Liam said carefully. "Recognition for your skills." "I didn't say yes," Kira said. "Not yet." Hope flared, painful and dangerous. "Why not, because of this?" Kira said, gesturing around the station. "Because of you." Liam's hands clenched into fists, fighting the urge to reach for her. "You should take it," he said, the words like glass in his throat. "It is a good opportunity." "I don't want to leave," Kira said, and her voice broke. "I have been so happy here, Liam. Happier than I have ever been. But I also don't want to trap myself, to look back in 10 years and wonder what I gave up." "Then don't give it up," Liam said. "Take the posting, I will still be here." "Will you?" Kira asked. "Will we?" He did not have an answer for that. They both knew that distance killed things like this, fragile and undefined. If she left, it would end. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. The passes would snow in, weeks would turn to months, and the connection between them would fray and break. "I cannot ask you to stay," Liam said finally. "I will not be the reason you give up your dreams." Kira stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "What if you are part of the dream now?" she asked, her back to him. "What if this place, this life, is what I want?" "You do not know that," Liam said. "It has only been a few months. You might come to resent it. Resent me." "I wouldn't," Kira said fiercely, turning to face him. "Liam, she stopped. The words stuck, and he saw her struggling with the same paralysis that gripped him. The inability to name what they felt, to make it real and vulnerable. "Think about it," Liam said gently. "You do not have to decide tonight." But the damage was done. The thing between them, so carefully built, now had a crack running through it. Kira stayed that night, but they barely spoke, both trapped in their own thoughts. In the morning, she left earlier than usual, citing the need to make good time. Liam watched her ride away and felt the ache settle deep in his bones. She did not come back the next week or the week after. Liam told himself it was fine, that she was busy, that the routes sometimes changed. But he knew the truth. She was avoiding the station, avoiding him, and he did not blame her. He had told her to leave, after all, had practically pushed her toward the posting. It was the right thing to do, the selfless thing, but it felt like dying. Winter threatened early that year, frost creeping down from the peaks in late October. Liam prepared the station for the cold months, stocking wood and supplies, battening down for the isolation to come. He tried not to think about Kira, about where she was and what she had decided. Tried not to imagine her in the lowlands, building a new life far from the mountains, but she was in everything. The garden they had planted together, the stable they had built, the chair she always sat in by the fire. Her absence was a presence of its own, haunting and inescapable. November came, and with it the first real snow. Liam was inside, cooking a sparse dinner when he heard hoofbeats. His heart leaped, but he forced himself to stay calm. It could be any traveler, seeking shelter before the pass closed for the season. He went to the door and opened it, and there was Kira, snow-dusting her hair and shoulders, her pony steaming in the cold. "I turned it down," she said without preamble. "The posting. I turned it down." Liam stared at her, his mind struggling to catch up. "Why?" Kira dismounted and came to stand in front of him, close enough that he could see the determination in her eyes. "Because I love this," she said. "The mountains, the freedom of the pass route, this station." She paused and her voice softened. "Because I love you." The words hit him like a physical blow. Liam's breath caught, and for a moment he could not speak. "Kira," he finally managed, I will not let you give up your future for me." "You are not letting me do anything," Kira said. "This is my choice, and I chose this. I chose you." "You will regret it," Liam said desperately. "Someday you will wake up and realize what you sacrificed, and you will hate me for it." "No," Kira said, and she took his hands. "I won't, because this is not a sacrifice. This is what I want, a life here with you if you will have me." Liam pulled her close, burying his face in her hair, and felt the knot in his chest finally loosen. "I have wanted that since the moment you walked back through that door," he said, "but I was too afraid to ask." "I am asking now," Kira said. "Let me stay, not just for one night, for all of them." He drew back, cupping her face in his hands, and kissed her. It was not their first kiss, but it felt like one. A beginning, a promise, a leap into the unknown. Kira kissed him back with equal fervor, and when they finally broke apart, both were smiling. "Come inside," Liam said, "before we both freeze." They went inside together, and Liam closed the door on the snow and the cold. Kira shed her coat and settled into her chair by the fire, and Liam brought her tea and bread and everything he had. They talked late into the night, planning and dreaming. Kira had an idea, a proposal she wanted to make to the courier service. She would petition to make the way station an official relay point, a hub for the mountain routes. It would mean more traffic, more responsibility, but also more security. A legitimate reason to stay. "Do you think they will approve it?" Liam asked. "I think they need the coverage," Kira said. "The pass routes are understaffed, and I have a good reputation. It is worth a try." Liam nodded. "Then we will try." The petition took months to process. Winter settled in, deep and unforgiving, and the pass closed. But this time, Liam was not alone. Kira was there, snowed in with him, and the isolation that had once been peaceful now felt like a gift. They had weeks of uninterrupted time, just the two of them, and they used it to build their life. They talked about everything, about their pasts, their hopes, their fears. Liam told her about the nightmares he still had sometimes, echoes of battles long past. Kira told him about the loneliness of the road, the constant moving that had once felt like freedom, but had also kept her from putting down roots. They learned each other's rhythms, the small habits and quirks that made up a life. Liam discovered that Kira sang when she cooked, off-key but enthusiastic. Kira learned that Liam liked to read before bed old adventure novels with cracked spines and dog-eared pages. They also learned how to navigate the harder moments. The fights, small and sharp, about whose turn it was to haul water or how much wood to burn. The silences when the cabin fever set in and they both needed space but had nowhere to go. They learned to apologize, to compromise, to choose each other even when it was difficult. And slowly, the way station transformed. It was no longer just Liam's space with Kira visiting. It was theirs. She hung her clothes in the wardrobe, stacked her books on the shelf, claimed half the bed without asking because it was understood. They worked together to improve the station, insulating the walls, expanding the pantry, making it a place that could sustain not just survival but a real life. Spring came again, and with it, the thaw. The pass opened, and the first couriers began to arrive. Kira flagged down one of her colleagues and sent the petition back down the mountain, formally requesting the way station's designation as an official relay point. Then there was nothing to do but wait. Weeks passed. Travelers came and went. Liam and Kira fell into a new routine, this one built around the station's operations. Kira took over managing the courier logistics, coordinating schedules and routes. Liam handled the physical upkeep, the repairs and supplies. They made a good team, complementing each other's strengths, shoring up each other's weaknesses. In late spring, a courier arrived with official correspondence. Kira's hands shook as she opened the letter, and Liam stood beside her, holding his breath. She read in silence, her expression unreadable, and then she looked up with tears in her eyes. "They approved it," she said. "The way station is now an official relay point. I am assigned here permanently." Liam let out a whoop and picked her up, spinning her around. Kira laughed, clutching his shoulders, and when he set her down they were both grinning like fools. "We did it," Kira said. "We actually did it." "You did it," Liam corrected. "This was your idea." "Our idea," Kira said firmly, "our life." And it was. The designation changed everything and nothing. The station saw more traffic now, couriers stopping regularly to exchange dispatches and rest. But the core of it, the heart of it, remained the same. Liam and Kira, working side by side, building something together. Summer arrived, hot and bright. They worked long days, managing the increased traffic, and in the evenings they sat on the porch and watched the sun set over the peaks. It was a good life, Liam thought. A simple one, but good. He had everything he needed. One evening, as they sat watching the stars emerge, Kira said, "Do you ever think about the future?" "All the time," Liam said. "Why? What do you see?" Kira asked. "When you think about it," Liam considered the question. "I see this," he said. "Us here doing what we are doing. Maybe expanding the station more if the traffic keeps increasing. Maybe a bigger garden, maybe a dog." He glanced at her. "What do you see?" Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I see the same, but also more. I see us growing old here. I see a family maybe, if you want that." Liam's heart skipped. They had never talked about this, not directly. "I want that," he said. "Someday, when the time is right." Kira smiled. "Good," she said, "because I want it too." The years began to pass, each one blending into the next in the best possible way. The way station grew. They added a second guest room, then a third. Built a proper stable with room for 6 horses. Planted fruit trees that would take years to bear but promised future abundance. The station became known along the courier routes as a reliable, welcoming stop, and Liam and Kira took pride in that reputation. They also grew. Liam learned to be less guarded, to share his thoughts and feelings instead of bottling them up. Kira learned to slow down, to appreciate the stillness instead of always seeking the next horizon. They challenged each other, supported each other, loved each other through the easy times and the hard. In their third year together, Kira got sick. Nothing serious, just a fever that lingered, but it frightened Liam more than he wanted to admit. He hovered, anxious and overprotective, until Kira finally snapped at him to stop fussing. They fought, sharp and loud, and Liam stormed out to chop wood until his arms ached. When he came back inside, Kira was crying and his anger evaporated. "I am sorry," he said, kneeling beside her chair. I cannot lose you." "You are not going to lose me," Kira said. "It is just a fever, Liam. I will be fine." "I know," he said, "but I worry anyway." She cupped his face, her thumb brushing his cheek. "I know you do," she said, "but you have to trust me to take care of myself." "I am working on it," Liam said, and she smiled. She recovered within the week, and Liam tried to be better about stepping back. But the fear lingered, a shadow at the edge of his thoughts. He loved her so much it terrified him, this awareness of how fragile everything was, how quickly it could all be taken away. But Kira was patient with him, as she had always been. She reassured him with actions as much as words, showing him every day that she was here, that she was staying, that this was real and lasting. In their 5th year, Liam asked her to marry him. It was not a grand gesture, no sweeping romance or carefully planned proposal. They were sitting at the table, the same table where they had shared that first meal, and he simply said, "I think we should get married." Kira looked up from the letter she was reading, blinking. "What? Married?" Liam repeated. "I want to marry you if you will have me." A slow smile spread across her face. "Is this a proposal? A terrible one, apparently," Liam said, suddenly nervous. "I should have planned something better." Flowers or Kira reached across the table and took his hand. "It is perfect," she said, "and yes, I will marry you." They married in the summer, a simple ceremony with only a traveling priest and a handful of friends from the nearby settlements. Kira wore a dress of soft green, the color of new leaves, and Liam wore his best shirt, the one she had mended for him a dozen times. They spoke their vows on the porch of the way station, with the mountains as their witness, and when the priest pronounced them married, Liam kissed her like it was the first and last time all at once. The celebration was small but joyful. They roasted a goat, drank too much wine, and danced under the stars. One of the couriers played a fiddle, and Liam spun Kira around until they were both dizzy and laughing. It was not the wedding of ballads or fairy tales, but it was theirs, and that made it perfect. Married life was not so different from before, except in the ways that mattered. There was a security now, a permanence, that settled over them like a warm blanket. They were no longer just partners but spouses, bound by vows and choice and love. Liam wore a simple iron ring, forged by the blacksmith in the settlement below, and he found himself touching it often, a reminder that this was real. In their 7th year together, Kira discovered she was pregnant. She told him on a winter evening, the two of them alone in the station with the snow falling soft outside. Liam stared at her, the words not quite sinking in, and then he laughed and pulled her into his arms. "Are you certain?" he asked. "Very certain," Kira said. "I have known for a few weeks, but I wanted to be sure before I told you." Liam kissed her, fierce and joyful. "We are going to have a baby," he said, and the words felt like magic. The pregnancy was not easy. Kira was sick often, especially in the early months, and Liam fretted despite his best efforts not to. He took over more of the station's work, insisting she rest, and Kira tolerated it with good humor. As her belly grew, they prepared the way station for the new arrival. Liam built a cradle from pine, sanding it smooth and carving small stars into the headboard. Kira sewed blankets and tiny clothes, her hands moving with practiced ease. They argued about names, playful debates that stretched over weeks. Liam favored traditional names, strong and solid. Kira wanted something with meaning, a name that told a story. In the end, they compromised, choosing names they both loved and holding them close, secret until the baby arrived. The baby came in late spring, a daughter with green skin and her mother's amber eyes. The birth was long and difficult, and there were moments when Liam thought he might lose them both. But Kira was strong, stronger than he had ever known, and she brought their daughter into the world with a final, triumphant cry. Liam held his daughter for the first time and felt his entire world shift. She was so small, so fragile, and yet she gripped his finger with surprising strength. He looked at Kira, exhausted and radiant, and said, "She is perfect." "She is," Kira agreed. "What should we call her?" They had settled on 2 names, and now, looking at their daughter, Liam knew which one fit. "Elara," he said. "Elara Greyford." Kira smiled. "Elara," she repeated, testing it. "Yes, that is right." Elara was a joyful baby, quick to smile and curious about everything. She brought new life to the way station, her laughter ringing through the rooms, her small hands reaching for everything. Liam and Kira navigated parenthood together, stumbling through the sleepless nights and the endless questions, but finding joy in every milestone. Elara's first word was "da," and Liam nearly cried. Her first steps were taken across the main room, from Kira's arms to Liam's, and they both cheered like she had won a battle. The way station continued to thrive. Couriers came and went, and many of them grew fond of the little half-orc girl who greeted them with a toothy grin. Elara grew up surrounded by stories of the road, by maps and far-off places, and Liam wondered if she would inherit her mother's wanderlust. But for now, she was content in the mountains, exploring the woods around the station and helping with small chores. In their 10th year together, Kira took a day off from the station and rode down to the settlement below. She returned that evening with a small package, wrapped in cloth. Liam was putting Elara to bed when Kira found him, and she waited until their daughter was asleep before handing him the package. "What is this?" Liam asked. "Open it," Kira said. He unwrapped the cloth and found a wooden sign, beautifully carved and painted. It read, "Greyford Way Station," and beneath that, in smaller letters, "Established by Liam and Kira Greyford." Liam traced the letters with his fingers, his throat tight. "Kira," he said. I wanted something to mark what we have built," Kira said. "A reminder that this place is ours. That we made it together." Liam set the sign down carefully and pulled her into his arms. "Thank you," he said, "for this, for everything." They hung the sign the next morning above the door where every traveler would see it. It felt right, Liam thought. A declaration and a celebration all at once. The years continued to pass. Elara grew from a baby into a bright, inquisitive child. She learned to read at her mother's knee, to chop wood under her father's watchful eye. She rode her first pony at 6, a small mare that Kira had traded for, and she took to it like she had been born in the saddle. Liam watched her race across the meadow and felt pride so fierce it was almost painful. In their 12th year, a young courier arrived at the station, fresh from training and nervous on his first mountain route. Liam and Kira welcomed him warmly, offering food and advice. The boy, who could not have been more than 20, stared at Kira with wide eyes. "You are Kira Coalmarch," he said, awed. "I have heard stories about you. They say you are the best courier in the mountains." Kira laughed, surprised and pleased. "I don't know about that," she said, "but I have been doing this a long time." "They say you turned down a posting in the lowlands to stay up here," the boy continued. "That you gave up everything for love." Liam, who had been pouring tea, glanced at Kira. She met his eyes and he saw the answer there before she spoke. "I did not give up anything," Kira said firmly. I chose what I wanted most, and I have never regretted it. The boy nodded, clearly moved, and after he left the next morning, Liam pulled Kira aside. Do you ever wonder, he asked, about what might have been if you had taken that posting? No, Kira said without hesitation. Do you? Never, Liam said, but I wanted to be sure you felt the same. Kira kissed him, slow and deep. I have everything I need, she said. Right here. In their 15th year, another baby arrived, a son this time. Kira's pregnancy was easier than the first and the birth quicker. Their son had his father's brown hair and his mother's green skin, and they named him Torin. Elara, now a lively 8-year-old, was thrilled to have a sibling, and she appointed herself his protector. The way station was busier than ever, and they hired help for the first time. A young woman from the settlement below who assisted with the chores and the guests. It was an adjustment, having another person in their space, but it freed up time for Liam and Kira to focus on their growing family. Torin was a quieter baby than Elara had been, thoughtful and observant. He watched everything with solemn eyes, and Liam often wondered what he was thinking. As he grew, it became clear that he had inherited his father's love of stillness, of careful work. He liked to sit with Liam and watch him mend harnesses or carve wood, content to be in his presence without needing constant activity. The years rolled on, each one adding to the tapestry of their life. Elara grew into a confident young woman, quick-witted and brave. She announced at 14 that she wanted to be a courier like her mother, and Kira began training her in earnest. Torin, meanwhile, showed an aptitude for building and repair, working alongside his father to keep the station running smoothly. In their 20th year together, Liam woke one morning and realized that he could no longer remember what his life had been like before Kira. The lonely years, the solitary meals, the silence that had once defined the way station, all of it felt like a dream. This, here now, was real. The laughter of his children, the warmth of his wife beside him, the steady rhythm of a life well lived. He got up and found Kira already awake, sitting at the table with a mug of tea. The same table where he had first offered her a chair, 20 years ago. She looked up as he entered, and her smile was as warm as ever. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," Liam replied and sat across from her. The chair was familiar, worn smooth by years of use. Everything in this room was familiar, lived in, loved, the pots hanging by the fire, the shelves lined with books, the cradle in the corner, now used for storage but kept because neither of them could bear to get rid of it. "You remember the night we met?" Liam asked suddenly. Kira's smile widened. "Of course I do. I was half frozen and terrified, and you hauled me inside like a sack of grain. You looked like you were about to die on my doorstep," Liam said. "I was not going to stand on ceremony. And then you asked me to stay," Kira said, her voice softening. "Just one night." "Just one night," Liam repeated. He reached across the table and took her hand. "I had no idea it would turn into this." "Did you want it to?" Kira asked. Even then, Liam thought about it, about that first night and the way he had felt. The sudden, startling awareness that he was not as content with his solitude as he had believed. "I think I did," he said. "I just did not know how to ask for it." "You did ask," Kira reminded him. "You asked me to stay." "And you did," Liam said. "Thank the gods you did." They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped across the table. Outside, the sun was rising over the mountains, painting the snow in shades of gold and rose. Liam heard the sound of footsteps overhead, Elara waking in her room. The creak of the door, Torin heading out to feed the horses. The familiar sounds of their family, their life. "I love you," Liam said, the words simple but weighted with 2 decades of meaning. "I love you too," Kira said. "Always." The day unfolded like any other. Breakfast was a cheerful chaos, Alara and Torin bickering over who had eaten the last of the honey. Couriers arrived and departed, bringing news from the lowlands and dispatches that needed forwarding. Liam and Kira worked side by side as they always had, their movements synchronized by years of practice. In the evening, after the children had gone to bed and the station was quiet, Liam and Kira returned to the table. It had become their ritual, this ending to the day. A moment to sit together, to breathe, to simply be. "You know what I realized today," Kira said. "What?" Liam asked. "We have been sharing this table for 20 years, Kira said. 20 years, and I still look forward to sitting here with you." Liam felt his chest swell with emotion. 20 years, he echoed. "It feels like both forever and no time at all." "I know exactly what you mean," Kira said. She stood and came around the table, settling into his lap. Liam wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "I would do it all again," Kira said softly. "Every choice, every moment. I would choose this, choose you 1,000 times over." "So would I," Liam said. He kissed the top of her head, breathing in the familiar scent of her. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Kira Greyford." "And you are mine, Liam Greyford," Kira said. They sat there together, wrapped in each other and the life they had built. Outside, the wind whispered through the pines and the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. Inside, the fire crackled, warm and bright, a beacon against the cold. Liam thought about that first night, when he had opened the door to a half-frozen orc courier and asked her to stay. He had thought it would be just one night, a brief interruption in his solitary existence. He could never have imagined this, the life that had grown from that single act of kindness. The love, the family, the home, but he was grateful for it, every single day. Grateful for the storm that had brought Kira to his door, grateful for her courage in coming back, grateful for the choice she had made and the life they had built together. "What are you thinking?" Kira asked, tilting her head to look at him. "That I am the luckiest man alive," Liam said. Kira laughed, the sound rich and full. "Luck has nothing to do with it," she said. "We made this together." "We did," Liam agreed, "and I would not change a thing." They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other and the warmth of the station. And when they finally rose to go to bed, they did so together as they had every night for 20 years. Partners, spouses, best friends. The next morning brought a fresh snowfall, and Liam woke to find Kira already up, standing by the window and watching the flakes drift down. He joined her, slipping an arm around her waist, and they stood together in the pre-dawn light. "Another winter," Kira said. "Another winter," Liam agreed. "With you." She leaned into him and he held her close. Outside, the world was white and quiet, pristine and peaceful. Inside, the fire burned low, ready to be stoked back to life. The children slept upstairs, safe and warm. The way station stood strong, a shelter against the cold. And at the heart of it all, Liam and Kira remained, still sitting at the same table, still choosing each other day after day, year after year, still building a life that had begun with a single request on a storm-tossed night. Just one night, Liam had said, and Kira had stayed. Not just for one night, but for all of them. For every sunrise and sunset, every season and storm. For the laughter and the tears, the easy moments and the hard. She had stayed, and together they had built something beautiful, something lasting. Something worth every choice, every sacrifice, every leap of faith. Liam kissed her temple and Kira sighed contentedly. "I am glad I knocked on your door," she said. "So am I," Liam said. "So am I." The sun rose over the mountains and the day began anew. There would be work to do, travelers to welcome, a life to live. But for now, in this moment, Liam and Kira simply stood together and watched the snow fall. Two people who had found each other in the wilderness and chosen to build a home. Two hearts that had learned to beat as one. And they knew, with a certainty that came from 20 years of shared mornings and quiet evenings, that they would continue to choose each other. Today, tomorrow, and all the days to come, because that was what love was. Not grand gestures or sweeping declarations, though those had their place. But the everyday choice to stay, to sit at the same table, to build a life brick by brick, meal by meal, moment by moment. Liam had asked Kira to stay one night, and she had stayed a lifetime, and it was more than enough. It was everything. The snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white, and inside the way station, the fire burned warm and bright. Alara came down the stairs, Torin close behind, and the family gathered around the table for breakfast. Liam poured tea while Kira sliced bread, and they talked and laughed and planned their day. Just another morning in the life they had built. Just another day of choosing each other. Just another moment in a story that had begun with a stranger's knock and had become a love that would last forever. And as Liam looked around the table at his wife, his children, the life they had created together, he felt a peace so profound it nearly brought him to tears. This was home. This was love. This was everything he had never known he needed. And it had all started with one simple request, made on a night when the snow fell and the wind howled, and a lonely man opened his door to a stranger. "Stay," he had said. And she had. And they had built a life worth living, together.